So in my last video, I was finally able to get my STI 6-speed transmission mounted up into my 2003 Subaru WRX. After finishing this milestone, it was time to continue working on assembling the suspension components, but first I had bushings to replace and several tasks that needed to be finished up. I started with the rear knuckles and trailing arms and installed brand new polyurethane bushings from SuperPro. Next, it was time to switch out my old crusty pitch stop mount with an STI Group N mount. Since I already had Group N engine mounts and a Group N transmission mount, I figured going with a STI Group N pitch stop mount would be a good complement. After installing the pitch stop mount, I crawled underneath and placed a set of new bushings in my shifter linkage in order to help eliminate slap from the old worn out stock bushings. My rear sway bar was next, and after placing new Cusco bushings on the bar, I decided I may as well mount up the bar, and it felt good to install another part back onto the car.
So these seals can be kind of a pain. Watch out, bud. To get out. I don't like having to tap on the screwdriver with a hammer like this, but I feel like as long as I'm gentle, should be okay, and I won't mar the edge of the gearbox right there, because that is where your axles seal, and you do not want them to leak. And I guess it's a good thing that these things are so hard to pull out, because that means they work. Ever so gently. And she's out. Yes.
All right, so I just finished cleaning up the area where the seal inserts on the transmission. Just want to make sure there wasn't like any of this like rubber still stuck to any of the metal on the gearbox, which would possibly create a leak. So I took care of that. And now we're gonna throw some brand new seals in. So I'm gonna put a little bit of assembly lube around the edge of this, and then we will try to insert it. I'll probably have to tap it in with like a socket or something, like a large socket that fits over the diameter of this. I'm not sure if I have one that big though. But yeah, typically you can't really press these all the way in and get them flush by hand. But you also don't wanna bend them. So you gotta be kind of gentle. So I'll just go slow.
All right, that was easy. I actually went in most of the way by hand.
All right, so I got the other axle seal installed on the driver's side of the transmission box off camera. Honestly, they went in a lot easier than I expected them to. While I was in the process of doing that, UPS just dropped some packages off, and there's some car parts in there. So I want to unbox those and share those with you guys real quick. I'm really excited to show you what we got. All right, so obviously we have a big ass box from HKS. That is my exhaust, and what I'm even more excited about is this box here from Fortunato. So let's go ahead and unbox this one first. I'm actually gonna start putting these on the car today because we can actually get a lot of the assembly done now that we have these. which I'm really stoked about. We're gonna be able to make a lot of progress. All right, that's pretty pro status. Let's see one of these. Wow. Wow. Those are beefy. Holy crap. All right, so we have a rear one right here, as well as a front one. Obviously you can do camber adjustment on the front. What's really cool about these, this is just the 500 series. This is their base model that they make. What's really awesome about these and what really sold me on them is you can actually upgrade these. I don't know exactly all of the upgrades you can do, but obviously you can put like stiffer springs on them. They can even do these like different types of like valves in them, I believe. You can add these canisters to them that a lot of people use for track use. So yeah, these are a great coilover for someone that wants to daily their car, but also be able to take it to the track and perform well. So I'm pretty stoked to have these. The other thing about these is they're completely rebuildable. You can send them back to Fortune Auto and they will rebuild them for you. They obviously charge a fee, but it's way cheaper than buying a new set of quality coilovers. And so it's kind of nice to have that feature on these, sort of like you can buy one set of coilovers and really not ever have a reason to buy another set. Unless you were, of course, gonna do like some really serious racing, then maybe you'd want something better. But for my purposes on this wagon, these things are gonna be freaking great, I think. All right, so in the coilover box, they have this, you scan this QR code for the instructions. They're super easy to follow so far. So you measure the length of the unsprung spring first, and then for the rears, you basically compress it 1/8 of an inch. It can't go more than 1/8 of an inch, I guess, on the rear. And then the fronts is 1/4 of an inch. So once it's all the way loose, just make sure that it's completely unsprung. And then I just took the tape measure here, made sure to verify the length, which is exactly 7 inches. Then just start tightening the collar. And then we'll measure 6 7/8. We went too far actually, so I'll just come back a little bit. And that looks right on the money. So now that that is in place, we can lock down this Allen bolt in there. They give you the little Allen keys for it. These ones, it says to only do 4.5 to 6 foot-pounds. I don't have a bit that I can put on the torque wrench this small, so I'm just kind of doing it by feel, which I think is fine, as long as I don't overdo it and break the bolt, and as long as I can get it untightened in the future if I need to, it should be fine. All right, and because I was not sure about ride height with these things, I called Fortune Auto to ask them if they have any recommendations as a starting point. I do not have my wheels and tires yet. I did order some new ones. Those will be here next week, hopefully. But because we want to get started with this, I just wanted to figure out like where a good starting place was so I wouldn't be like wildly off. So basically, the customer service rep that I talked to, super helpful. Basically, he said I should put it at the max ride height for these coils. And what that means is the lower mount right here, the threaded part of the body needs to be in this lower mount on the front and rear at least 50 millimeters. So 50 millimeters in is like your stopping point. It's like the highest you can go. And he said if I do that on all four, it'll be about 1 inch lower than stock ride height. So I think that's a good starting point. The wheels that I ordered are 18s, so I'm not sure like how the fitment will be. So we're just gonna start higher than lower, and then we'll adjust as needed once the wheels and tires get here. All right, and then did a little Google conversion here. 50 millimeters is 1.969 inches, so I just did 2 inches. A little bit more threads in the lower mount can't hurt. So what I did is just measured from the end here up 2 inches. Then I marked it with this paint pen. And then I just threaded it just past that point and then locked the collar down. So we'll do this. Boom, just like that. And I'm not going to worry about getting these collars super duper tight yet because we might have to adjust more once we get the wheels and tires. Bam, now we got a starting place for our ride height. It's like pretty damn even to me. I'd say we're on the money. I would say we are right on the money. Before mounting up the Fortunatos, I wanted to finish rebuilding my Brembo calipers. So I started by cleaning the piston areas as best as possible, then the pistons themselves. After that, I installed new inner seals and dust boots, hit the calipers with a little bit of compressed air just to be sure there was no more debris, slapped some assembly lube on the pistons, and slid them into place. Then of course, I placed one of these small O-rings back into its designated spot. Apparently, this is one piece you don't want to forget when rebuilding these brakes. If you do, you'll likely have a bad day. And finally, it was time to bolt them back together. All right, another Brembo reassembled. Got all the mounting bolts on the back, torqued down to 40 foot-pounds. I don't know the exact torque specs on these. When I Googled it, seemed like everyone agreed that it was appropriate to torque them down to in between 35 and 45 foot-pounds was the most consistent information I was able to come up with. So I just went in the middle and did 40. Really stoked to have these back together. All right, guys, so we have most of our parts that we need for the rear suspension to get reassembled back here. Obviously our coilover, we have our end link with the little box bracket thing, our hardware, trailing arm, lateral arms, and our knuckle over there. So I'm gonna start throwing this stuff on. This side should go a little bit faster. I've already finished up the passenger side over there. We can walk around there real quick, I'll show you. So here's what we're looking like over here. Yeah, I got the caliper installed, the brake line fitted up, and yeah, everything's looking pretty good under here. I do still need to go through and torque everything down to spec, but overall, it's all put back together. Yeah, I just decided to do that one off camera just to get some more work done. Obviously, I don't need to show you both of the sides because it's pretty monotonous. I wanted to do it off camera also because there's definitely like an ideal sequence of putting all this stuff back on, and I wasn't exactly sure what that sequence was. And so I sat here and kind of floundered for a bit and had to take things back apart multiple times because I didn't realize that some stuff needed to go on before other stuff, etc. So now that I have it a little bit more dialed, we can jump to the other side and that side should go a little bit smoother. All right, so I'm gonna start with this trailing arm. Man, with these Super Pro bushings, look at how fat that thing is now. It's definitely a little thicker than stock.
So getting it into this bracket is a little bit trickier, but it's not too bad. You just gotta kind of finagle it in there. And the little like flange on this will kind of like flex out a little bit. Yeah. All right. It's so easy. The other one did not fit that easy. Not complaining though. So this link was like too long, because these aren't OEM links, these are Super Pro adjustable links. And this little box, it has a hole right here so that you can access the end of the link through there with the Allen key to hold it in place to tighten the nut. And on the OEM ones, the post isn't quite as long as this post. So I actually had to stick a drill bit down in from this side and drill this hole out in there larger so that the post could slide through. You can kind of see it sticking out right there, just ever so slightly, in order to use these things properly. So I did make that hole in this little box slightly bigger. I don't think it should really affect anything. So hopefully I'm right. Seems fine, honestly. All right, next we are going to mount the knuckle to the bottom of the trailing arm. I made this mistake last time and didn't do this soon enough, and I had to take a bunch of stuff back apart. So that's why we only hand tighten things. All right, maybe with our little rubber mallet here. This just a little bit. Boom. That was hard. That was fucking physical. Put this nut on the back here. All right, axle is going in. Whew. All right. Axle's in. Let's get an axle nut on this bad boy. All right, so this part's interesting because this little piece of the puzzle sits right in there, and then these sandwich on both sides. Oh no, did I do it again? Oh, son of a bitch, dude. I did this last on the other side too. Don't know. I'm gonna be able to get. Oh no. Let's take this out of here. Shock. Let's see if we can. Come on. Okay, cool. If you don't lift this front control arm up out of the way of the trailing arm before you mount this piece to the shock, you're kind of screwed. You gotta undo it. Okay. Like so. A big ass bolt. Washer for the other side. All right, guys, so everything is looking pretty good in here, as you can see. The major components are all installed. Everything's just like finger tight right now. What I'm gonna do next is get the brake lines hooked back up, and then after that's installed, we'll have to work on the e-brake shoes. I hate doing brake shoes. Definitely my least favorite thing to do. But yeah, so we just got to get it done though.
Yesterday, that was the longest part of the process for me on the other side, was getting the damn brake shoes all fit back up. There's just so many little pieces and stuff. I don't have the correct tools, so I just have to make it work with what I got. It does the job, but it does take longer.
Pretty stoked to be upgrading to stainless steel lines, brake lines. We're in. Tighten her down. Get her nice and tight.
So the only issue I've run into with fitment on these is this bracket on the coilover. It's meant for the stock USDM STI brake lines, which have a different piece right here on them. You can see, yeah, it's got this like the straight edges behind this round piece. That has to fit all the way through this bracket in order to get the clip. But as you can see, it doesn't fit all the way. So what I had to do is Dremel out this little bottom piece of the bracket right there, just ever so slightly, in order to get it to fit through so I could get the clip to work.
Boom. Looks great.
All right, so after about 30 minutes of struggling, our brake shoe is finally reinstalled. First, I need to throw the rotor on. We'll get the caliper in place, and we will attach our brake line. I'm gonna put some anti-seize on the bolts because I guess that is kind of a pretty typical issue with these Brembo calipers, is these bolts tend to seize, and then they strip out the threads on the caliper, and then they have to be rethreaded. I want to avoid that. Crush washers are in place, one on each side. Get that thing statted. Okay. Now I just have the ABS sensor to attach to the back of the knuckle, and some of the like brackets to secure down for the e-brake cable, and then we are pretty much done with the rear. All right guys, so it is the next morning. After I finished mounting up the rear driver's side suspension yesterday, I went through everything on the rear end, including like the bolts for the subframe, as well as all the suspension components. Tightened every nut and bolt down to spec. I just wanted to make sure, just for peace of mind's sake, that everything was correctly torqued down. Which I'm glad that I did, because a lot of them needed to be tightened a little bit more. So it's good to know that doing that does actually serve a purpose. So in case you want to do this yourself, basically I'm looking in the chassis section, and there's a section called rear suspension, and it has this diagram here, and it basically shows you everything you would need for that. I also pulled up the one for the drive shaft and got all of the mounting bolts fastened down to spec as well. So now I'm going to start working on the front suspension components, and then once we have that all dialed, I'll do the same thing. I'll go through all of that. We'll torque everything down to OEM spec. So I'm gonna jump in and get started, and hopefully we can get this front end all dialed today. All right, so I got our front knuckle here. This little metal cone for the ball joint, that's gonna go in there. I'm going to attach the ball joint to the bottom of the knuckle here. All right, guys, the suspension on this wagon is finally all reinstalled. I will need to go through the front end and torque everything down to spec like I did on the rear. But I'm gonna do all that off camera because it's pretty damn boring to watch. Honestly, the front went really smooth. It really was less technical than the rear end. Just like less components to deal with. So I'll show you the other side real quick. Here is the other side. It's looking real nice. Super clean. Yep, so everything under here is all finished up. For the most part, like everything is actually torqued down to spec. The only thing I really need to do back here is pop the fill plug open on the rear diff and put gear oil in. Yeah, really stoked to get all the suspension knocked out. Next, I just need to get the motor reinstalled, but that will have to be in the next one. I'm gonna have to wrap this video here. That's all I have time for in this vid, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did get anything out of this, I would appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, and think about subscribing if you haven't already. In the next video, I have some really cool parts to show you that just recently came, and wheels and tires should be here soon too, so I'm really stoked to reveal what I got. Look forward to the next one. Yeah, like I said, that's all I got for now, and until next time, peace out everyone.